Elephants in the room.
Okay, so did you hear like the tapping?
Yeah,
the
it's
beating?
when my voice was getting too high.
Well, no, when it gets to the end, then you start.
Oh,
So like when you
so I
started,
start now.
it was yeah. So when you started, it wasn't even. It hadn't gone into it yet.
Hi guys, welcome back to Elephants in the Room. Oh my gosh, guys, this is gonna be a crazy episode. I have some crazy news for you guys. First of all, please excuse my voice. I came down with a little bit of a cold the past couple days, and my voice literally sounded like rocks scratching on pavement yesterday. So it sounds better today. It's still a little bit, a little wonky, but we're going to go with it. Thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. Holy crap, that was so fun. I got to have two of my favorite people on, David Kushner and Hade. David is my boyfriend, as you guys know. So it was just so fun. Hade is a good friend of ours. I feel like I've gotten such good feedback on that episode because it's just so cool to get vulnerable with people. It's so cool to have vulnerable conversations with people. And I was able to do that with them. So that was pretty special. I hope you guys had a great week. My week was eventful, to say the least. And we'll talk about it on this episode. This episode is going to have a title, but it's also going to be a little bit of a life update for you guys, which is super exciting. It's been a very emotional day. We're going to get into it. Don't worry. But I'm going to start by telling you guys what this episode is about. This episode is going to be about, drum roll, please. Dun, 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 dun. I don't have anyone here to do a drum roll, but it's going to be about change. Change. Oh, change. Change is scary, but change is good. And we're going to talk about it. So I'm going to leave my exciting news for the end. But let's just talk about change. And I'm just going to share some experiences with you guys that I've had in regards to change. As you guys know, I had a very traumatic childhood, and I feel like one of the biggest repercussions of that was the abandonment issues that I do have now. And wow, did I not even realize how real those were? Like the older I get and the more life experience that I have and the hard things that I go through, I realize how bad my abandonment issues are really rooted. Like they are deep. They are deeply rooted. Like, I don't know if you guys relate to this, but I am someone who I'm convinced nothing good is ever going to happen for me. Like, if something is going good in my life, I'm immediately thinking of all the ways that it's going to go wrong. Like, I genuinely cannot get myself to believe that something is going to work out for me and that people are going to stay in my life. It's almost like I create these fake scenarios in my head of like, this is how it's going to go wrong. And there's no way this person's going to stay. And there's no way this opportunity is going to work out. And there's no way that like, this is all going to be good. Like I'm always looking out for like the bad that's going to happen next. I'm like, okay, even if something's good right now, like it's going to go bad before long. Like it's really going to go bad. And it's easy in life to feel like that because the truth of the matter is we do go through good things and we do go through bad things. And so it's like, there can't be the good without the bad. And so, that's all normal and that's okay to accept. But it starts to become an issue when we do have things work out in our life. And when we do have people who truly love us and who truly want to stick around and we convince ourselves that they don't. And we convince ourselves that these good things aren't going to work out for us. And then they do. And so it's like we over stress about something that we don't need to stress about. Like if something's going to work out, it's going to work out. And if it doesn't, it's not. But if everything's in line for it to work out, why can't I just get myself to believe that it's going to work out? Why am I constantly catastrophizing and coming up with these terrible scenarios of how it's not going to work out for me? It's like I feel like I don't deserve anything in life. And like I know I'm not a perfect person, but like I wouldn't say I'm a bad person either, but for whatever reason, I just can't believe sometimes that good things are meant for me. And it really messes with me because it makes me sad even amidst the good times. And it makes me just constantly not have peace. And I just want peace. And luckily, I serve a good God who loves me. And I know that no matter what my life looks like, even in the bad and the good, I know that everything is going to be okay because I have Jesus. I believe no matter what your circumstances are, you won't be happy unless you're fulfilled. And I believe personally that you won't be happy unless you're fulfilled by the right thing, which I believe is Jesus Christ. I'm going to tell you guys something. In some of my deepest, darkest times when I was depressed, going through a divorce, miserable, my self-esteem was low, my health was bad, all of those things, when I was going through those times, sometimes I look back and I'm like, why was I able to have a little bit more joy in those times than I am right now? Like, my life is good. Like, and it's really weird because I feel like my life was bad for like my whole life. and I say that with a grain of salt, but like really, like most of my life has been extremely traumatic. So now that I'm having good things happen to me, and now that I'm having a normal, healthy life, it's like I refuse it. It's like I can't accept it because I'm so used to chaos. I actually remember my therapist used to tell me this. She was like, Nicole, the reason you're so uncomfortable in this new relationship when I was first dating David is because it's healthy. It's because there's no chaos. There's nothing for you to fix. And because I'm such a people pleaser and I'm so codependent, which again, I am recovering from those things and healing from those things, and I've come a very long way. But for me, what's comforting was chaos because that's all I knew. Like, if I wasn't in chaos, I didn't know how to just like be and rest. And so I feel like I'm entering into this part of my life where I'm actually very blessed. And I feel like God has really rescued me from so much turmoil and so many bad circumstances. And he's gifted me with so many good circumstances. But what is so humbling about that is that I'm realizing my joy actually doesn't come from those things. Like, sometimes I have really good things in my life and I still feel depressed. Sometimes things are working out for me and I still feel hopeless and anxious and like kind of like pessimistic. And what I feel like God is making me realize is that it is not about how much money you have in your bank account. It is not about how perfect your relationship is, how great your job is, how many goals you've checked off on your list this year. That won't make you happy. That won't truly bring you joy. Momentarily, temporarily, but at the end of the day, we have a deep longing in our heart for something more than these material items, something more than all the things you see on your phone. We desire something more. And the truth is, it's love and it's acceptance and it's security. And I really believe those things come from within and come from your relationship with God. Now, if you're not a Christian, all respect and love to you. Absolutely. I think that stuff is important to focus on internally. And obviously, I just have to say, if you're not a Christian, I love the heck out of you. And the only reason I talk so much about Jesus is because he saved my life. And obviously, I want that for others. But I think there's a balance, and we can't force our beliefs on other people. But I just want to spread some of the love that Christ has filled in my heart. So yeah, let's just talk about change. I'm going to talk about some times in my life when I refused change. And let me just say, coming from someone who has severe abandonment issues and who had 2 drug addict parents growing up, all I've ever wanted in my life is security. All I've ever wanted in my life is security. So change is really scary for me because I rather stay in a situation I know isn't for me because I know the outcome of that situation and I know what's going to happen than be in a situation where I don't know the outcome and I don't know what's going to happen. Because I thrive off of safety and security. And so for me, even if something is sometimes bad for me or not right for me, I rather stay in it than do something else because I'm so scared of the unknown. And the reason I'm so scared of the unknown is because I have these severe abandonment issues. So in my head, nothing's ever going to work out for me. So if I find something that even slightly is okay and that slightly works out for me, I will stay there forever. But that's not good. And I've learned that. I have learned that, and let's talk about it. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse when I talk about these things, but hopefully these things help you guys. a prime example of me staying in something way longer than I should have, let's actually go back to my childhood. Let's talk about this. So obviously, as you guys know, both my parents were drug addicts, and, we had CPS in our life involved. I have some half siblings, all the 9 yards, whatever you can think of. We were very poor growing up. Not that any of these things are terrible. Like, I know that there are people who went through worse things than me, and I 100% understand that. And I am grateful for the fact that I had food on the table and that, I survived and all these different things. Moral of the story is, growing up, my parents struggled with drug addiction, and it kind of got to a point where all of my siblings started to fade out of my life and of my mom. They didn't want to be with my mom anymore. So when I was 8 years old, my parents got divorced, and my dad obviously separated, and he went and moved in with roommates, and we lived with my mom. Now, right around that time when I was 8 years old, my mom got in a really bad car accident. Like, literally, guys, I got called down to the school office, and my sister was in the office with a pale white face. I remember she looked at me, and I just knew something was wrong. And she said, "Get in the car. Mom's hurt." We got in the car. The doctor literally called us and told us that she wasn't going to make us, and if we had any last words for her, that we had to tell him. Now, I was so attached to my mom. So that's a whole nother traumatic story that we can get into later. But we drove an hour to the hospital. What happened is she got into a really bad car accident. She got T-boned by a truck that had a ton of heavy tools in it. And she was wearing her seatbelt, which was quite literally the only reason she survived. But she was life flighted to the hospital. She broke her back. She broke her pelvis. She was in the hospital for a whole year, 6 months in like urgent care hospital. And then she had 6 months in like physical therapy and in that kind of hospital. I don't know the details of what it's called, but moral of the story, that day, we went to the hospital and they said she's not going to make it. And it was by the grace of God that she survived. Like, actually, she was on life support, I think, for 4 days. It was very crazy and very traumatic. Moral of the story, when that happened, she ended up finally recovering and getting out. During that time, we lived with my aunt, me and my siblings did. Now, at that time, I have 3 sisters. My oldest sister had graduated high school, and so she was actually out at college. And then I had 2 other older sisters. Now, I do have a half brother that's younger than me, and I do have a half sister that's older than me. So when that happened, kind of after that piqued my mom's drug addiction again. And so she started to fall back into it. And slowly and surely over time, I think my sisters just got fed up, and it just wasn't a safe environment. So my oldest sister was in college, obviously. And then she ended up actually getting married and moving away. And she actually had already moved away, but she ended up getting married. Sorry, guys, this story's blotchy, but I promise I'm trying to get all the pieces and the parts. And then my second oldest sister, she ended up moving in with my aunt because she just was fed up with my mom and with everything going on. I think she just couldn't deal with it. And then my sister right above me, she actually ended up going and living with my sister and her husband because it was just super unsafe for her. And, my sister was able to kind of convince her to get out of that situation. Now me, I was very young. I think at the time I was like 9 or 10 when all this was happening, because after my mom's car accident, we moved back in with her, and she ended up having her boyfriend at the time move in with us. And I don't want to share too many details, but she actually met him at the mental hospital that she worked at. He was a patient. He ended up moving in with us, and he was very abusive. Not physically to us, but emotionally and physically abusive to my mom. And it was a very scary situation. And they both struggled with drug addiction. And that was around the time when I think everyone had kind of gotten fed up. So again, my oldest sister was married and had a husband. My second oldest sister moved in with my aunt. And then my third sister ended up moving in with my oldest sister, or my one right above me. I refused. I stayed. I stayed with my mom because I was so attached to my mom, like so attached. And I just couldn't envision life without her because I was so scared. Like if I left, something bad was going to happen to her and that I wasn't going to be there. And right around that time, my mom got pregnant and had my little brother, and I wanted to protect him. And it was not a good thing for either of us, for me or my little brother. Around that time, CPS ended up getting called, and then they started an investigation on my family. And during that time, my sister was like, please, please, please come live with us. Like, get out of this situation. And there had just been thing after thing after thing that had happened. That is kind of when I missed a ton of school because I would stay home to watch my brother because my mom would just disappear. And I just was not willing to budge. I was not willing to budge. I knew that the situation was bad. I mean, I didn't understand how bad it was, but I knew that it was a bad situation, but I couldn't get myself to leave. I just couldn't. Like, I knew it was chaos and terrible, but I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And so we ended up staying. I literally stayed with my mom until we got taken away, until finally a really traumatic experience happened and we got taken away by CPS and we had no choice. And I was so mad. I was so mad when we got taken away because I was like, I can take care of myself. I had grown this like hyper independence in such a traumatic situation that I was like, it doesn't matter that I'm in this bad situation because like I can take care of myself. Because as you guys know, like my whole life, like generally I've made good choices. Like I got good grades. I never did drugs. I never had sex. Like I did everything to be like a good kid. And so I was like, I'm fine. Like, why are you taking me away? Obviously now I can see why that needed to happen. But I stayed with my mom and her abusive boyfriend for so long when I shouldn't have. But I was so scared of the change. So scared. And then obviously, you know, it ended up being good in the long run. I ended up moving in with my sister. I lived with my aunt for a little bit, but then I ended up moving in with my sister and moving 2 hours away to a different city in Utah. And I remember driving there, I was so mad and I was like, I don't want to do this and I don't want to go to a new school and I don't want to leave my friends because I had all these really good friends. I was playing soccer at my high school. It felt like I was leaving everything behind. And then I went and I cried the first like 3 days. I remember I came home from school and I was like, Bayla, there's no cute boys. This is such a high school girl thing to do. I was in 10th grade at the time. And then it ended up being really great. And I met some of my greatest friends and I was finally in a safe situation with people who took care of me. My sister and my brother-in-law, they were such good people. I got my license. I finally wasn't like dealing with crazy things. Like I was just finally able to be a normal teenager. It was crazy and it was really great. But I refused it for so long, that change. Another time I refused change was when I stayed in my marriage for way longer than I should have. And I stayed in a really toxic situation because to me, it was better staying in that than the unknown of not being in that. Like I'd rather be in complete fight or flight mode, barely able to survive because I was such an emotional wreck, than change. I want to paint a picture for you guys. There's this picture. It's a picture of God holding a really big teddy bear behind his back. And then it's a picture of a little girl holding on to a little teddy bear. And she says, in the photo, it says like, but I love him, God. And then the picture of God says, I know, but just trust me. And he's holding the big teddy bear behind his back. And if that is not a representation of my life, guys, I don't know what is. I was stripped of everything. I lost my marriage. I lost the person that I thought I was going to spend forever with. I lost my religion. I lost friends. I lost family. I lost everything that I knew. And it was all public too. Like I had to publicly go through it. And I literally had nothing. I was stripped down to nothing. My circumstances were really, really bad. And of course they could have been worse. But the moral of the story is I could have stayed in that, and I honestly would have stayed in that longer if I could have. The only reason I finally let go of my marriage is because I kind of had no choice. It got to a point where I knew I couldn't stay, and I knew that there was a certain threshold of like, I don't want to speak too much about it, but there was a threshold of a certain point. I knew if it ever gets to this point, I have to go. And I had let everything happen, and I had compromised my morals, my standards, what I deserved so many times. I let myself get disrespected and devalued so many times. And then finally, I knew that at that point, there was no way of going back. I remember laying on the couch and being like, I want to fight for this marriage and I want to keep staying, but I can't, and I was forced to change. I was forced. So both times in my life, the big changes that I had to make, being removed from my home life and also being removed from my marriage kind of weren't my choice. I was kind of forced into the change, which is actually kind of sad to realize. And it just kind of shows me again, like how change is so scary. So let's talk a little bit about why change is so scary. Change is scary because we are so scared of the unknown. As someone who struggles with anxiety, I just want to know what's happening. I tell my boyfriend this all the time. And like, oh, sweet David, love David to death. He has been so patient with me. But when we first started dating, like a month into dating, I was like, David, like if you don't know that you're going to marry me, like I'm out. And he was like, bro, we've been dating for like a month. But to me, I was like, listen, I'll be heartbroken. I'd rather be heartbroken now and prevent myself from getting hurt in the future. So I'm like constantly playing damage control for my future that hasn't even happened. I'm constantly thinking about like, well, if this bad thing happens and this bad thing's going to happen and this bad thing's going to happen. And I just need security. And so me and David have healed from that. And obviously I was able to get over that and work through that in therapy and not expect him to know if he wanted to marry me in the first month. But like, that is how bad my abandonment issues are. That's like embarrassing, but funny. David's probably listening to this laughing. Love you, David. Oh man. We both have our issues, but, that was a fun one. And so I feel like this last couple years, God has constantly put me in these situations where I don't know what the outcome's going to be. And I really do feel like it's been to strengthen my faith and to stop making so many plans. We all want to plan everything. We want to plan. We want to know exactly what's going to happen, how it's going to happen. And I just don't think it's supposed to be like that. I've had to learn that the hard way because every plan I've ever made in my life hasn't worked out. Isn't that crazy? I'm like, wait. Anyways, I'm getting off track, but let's talk about how change, is hard. It's scary because we don't know. We're scared of the unknown. We're scared of the unknown. We like certainty. We like security. We like knowing what's going to happen to us. And that's why change can be really scary. Change is also scary because sometimes it kind of reveals some stuff in our hearts that may not be good. It is so easy when you're in a situation or routine of doing something to kind of ignore what's really going on inside of you because you're kind of in autopilot. You're kind of numb. And so a change really forces us to like be real with ourselves and really check in with our hearts and what's really going on inside of us. Because it takes us off of autopilot. When we have to make a change, especially a big change, we really have to mentally be there and we really have to work through problems and problem solve. Like it really takes us out of our comfort zone. Change is also scary because we don't know if it's going to turn out good. That's why I hate change because I'm like, man, what if this turns out really bad? What if it turns out really bad? It's scary, and sometimes we rather settle for what we know isn't for us than be willing to go through the trenches and try something that might not work out. But what if it does work out? What if it does work out for your good? What if that is exactly what you need to become who you're truly meant to be? What if that is exactly what you need to meet the person you're supposed to be with? What if that is exactly what you need to finally find your passion and purpose in life? What if that is exactly what you need to develop your character and to become more selfless and loving and Christ-like? We have to understand that we can't see the big picture. We can see a couple steps ahead of us. We can't see the big picture. But you know who can see the big picture? God. He can. So we have to trust in that. Change is hard, guys. Change is hard. It's scary. It's uncomfortable. It requires a lot of work mentally, physically, emotionally. It's scary. It's really scary, but it is an essential part of life. It has to happen. It has to. Let's talk about some of the good things about change now. Let's switch it up real quick. Some of the really good things about change, but I think the best thing about change is that it helps us grow. Change helps us grow. Sometimes to grow, we really have to have everything fall apart because it forces us to rebuild from scratch. Change doesn't happen when we just are in autopilot. It doesn't. Not internally or externally. And sometimes when we change our circumstances externally, it helps us change our heart internally. Every hard thing I've been through in my life has helped me grow so much. Like in the midst of the hard thing, it is hard. It's hard. But I will forever be grateful for all of the terrible, sleepless nights that I've had because they've made me who I am today. All of the pain, all of the change, all of the uncomfortableness has made me who I am. It's just so important to let ourselves go through life with an open mind and willing to learn and willing to grow and willing to change, because we'll never advance as human beings and become, who we're meant to be. Like, I don't know about you guys, but when you go through hard things, not only do you change and do you grow, but it develops a sense of empathy, and I've shared that with you guys before, but like before I got divorced, I feel like I was very judgmental. And before I left the church, I feel like I was also a little bit like self-righteous. Like I kind of thought that I was such a good person and I had everything figured out. And I really thought, I knew everything. And when I went through my divorce and when I left my religion, it humbled me. It humbled me. But now I have so much more compassion and empathy for others who go through similar things. And I don't see myself as smarter or better or on a different, life path than anyone else. I see myself as the same broken person that we all are. Like we're all broken people that want to do good and are trying to figure it out. And when we go through hard things and we have to go through changes, it really helps us develop compassion and empathy, which is so good about change. Another good thing about change is that changing helps you really identify what you actually love, what you like, what you love, what's good for you, what's bad for you. It's like, if we only ever, for example, if we only ever like ate one food, if we only ever ate one food in our life, like let's say I only ever ate chicken nuggets my whole life, I would never know if I liked burgers or sandwiches or vegetables or whatever. Like you won't know what's out there until you try it. And how do you try things? You have to change. And that can be relationships, that can be a job, that can be an environment, whatever it is. We will just stay doing the same thing our whole lives if we don't let ourselves go through changes. You have to embrace the change. It's so important. Don't push away the change. If you feel like there's a change in your life that needs to happen or that is happening even without you really trying, you need to let it happen, because forcing it to not happen and trying to refuse that change is only going to make the process harder. The truth is, like, it's going to happen. It's inevitable. We're going to go through hard things, and it's going to make us change, and we're going to have to change things. And when we push that away and we shove it away, it just only hurts us. You know, it's like if we can embrace the change and say, what can I learn from this? You know, what are the positives of this? What are the negatives of this? How can I grow skills to get through this change? It's only going to better you, and it's only going to better your life. So those are some of the reasons why change is so good. And the last reason I feel like change is really good is because it helps us rely on God. It helps us trust in him because we don't know the outcome anymore. When we get so stuck in the rat race of doing the same thing over and over again, and we know the outcome. Yeah, maybe it's safe and it's comfortable. But let me tell you something. Think about everything in life. Everything in life that's good usually comes from something hard. Like exercising. Exercising is hard. And what comes from it? Good endorphins. You take care of your body, you know, but it's hard to do that. All the things that are good for us usually are the harder route. You know, what's better for you? Going and eating McDonald's or eating a home cooked meal? Eating a home cooked meal. If you eat the home cooked meal, you're going to have to cook, you're going to have to clean. But is it better for you in the long run? Yes. So I just feel like these short-term things that we love and that we try so hard to justify, like we just want what feels good. But sometimes what feels good isn't good for you. Nothing good in life comes from doing easy things. Everything good in life comes from doing hard things. Everything that's happened in my life, even the hard things, have made me who I am, and I'm grateful for it. So yeah, that's why change is good, guys. It's just good. And I feel like in this season of life, God is really just testing me a lot and just strengthening my faith. Sorry, guys. I feel like this episode is kind of all over the place, but guys, change is good. It produces good things in our heart. It develops our character. It helps us develop skills. It helps us develop resilience. It helps us figure out what we like, what we don't like, what's meant for us, what's not meant for us. We have to try things. We have to change things to become who we're meant to be. And I believe that. So now we're going to get to the fun part of the episode. Ooh, drum roll, please. Okay, I already did that, but let's just get into it. Guys, I have some really crazy news for you. Like, so crazy. But first, I kind of need to give you guys a little bit of a storyline, and I kind of need to get a little bit vulnerable with you guys. As some of you may know, right now, I actually live in a state all by myself in Arizona, and I moved out here for a job. So let me give you guys a little background. I have been working at this job for 3.5, almost 4 years, like a lot of years of my life. I started actually working at this job pretty shortly after I got divorced, or right around that time. And this job has been a means of security for me. This job has been everything to me. When I first got this job, it was like everything to me. I worked endless hours, endless overtime, and gave everything to it. And because of that, you know, I've been very blessed by it. I have moved up in the company. I started as a store manager. Now I'm a regional manager. And we went from opening 1 store to opening 3 stores. And I am over all of those 3 stores. And my owners are amazing. They've put so much trust in me. I've really kind of helped them build this business from the ground up. And so it honestly feels like a little bit of a baby to me. It's like kind of like my little baby. Like I've given so much to it. Even to the point where when I got offered the regional manager job, part of the job was to move out here to Phoenix. And it was scary, but I took that leap of faith because I really felt like it was the right thing to do. Now, not to say that it wasn't, but it hasn't really turned out as I planned. As far as the store, we had planned to open multiple more stores in Arizona, and unfortunately that hasn't worked out. And that kind of resulted in a little bit of sadness and disappointment within myself and within just the job. And I've been so disconnected from my friends and my family and my boyfriend, and I've been so isolated out here. And I really thought I would be okay, but I honestly haven't been. I feel like the last couple months, I've been out here for about a year and a half. And, the first 6 months were pretty good. I felt, okay. I felt in a decent place, and I felt hopeful of the future. And when I first moved out here, I actually moved out here with a friend of mine who also worked at the same company. And so she was my assistant. After about 4 months, she ended up moving away. And so I ended up being by myself. But I was like, I got this. Like, I like being alone. I'm very independent. And just since then, it's just been really hard. I feel like I'm constantly pulled in so many directions where I have this long distance boyfriend. And so I'm constantly traveling to see him. I have a lot of responsibilities at work. And so I feel like I have all these different plates. I have my job that I used to give everything to, and it was my number one priority. But now I have this relationship that's a priority to me. I have my podcast that's a priority to me, and obviously David is my number one priority. But I have all these priorities, and I have all of this on my plate, and all amidst this, I'm alone and I'm isolated. And for months, I have been struggling because I have accepted that this is not the place for me, and that even though I am independent and I can do things by myself, it's not good for me to be alone and this isolated. I have no community out here. I have no friends, really, no family. I'm all by myself. I go to work, I come home, I sit on my phone, I film podcasts. Like, I don't really do anything. And I do have, a couple of friends here, but no one that I'm really close to, and no one that I'm really, really comfortable with where I can just sit in a room with them. And it's just been scary, and it's been depressing. And I feel like I've kind of let go of myself in a sense. I've stopped going to the gym as much. I've let my health decline a little bit. I've, let myself fall into some bad habits and bad sins. And I just feel like I've just felt very hopeless and honestly depressed. And it's kind of sad to admit that, but it's true. And there's just been this turmoil of what do I do? Where do I go? And, I've been complaining about this and trying to figure out what I'm doing for months, and the problem is that anytime anyone ever offered me a solution of change, I refused it because I have a fear of the unknown. And this job, there's a lot of parts I love about it. And like I said, my owners are amazing, but I think that I've just become burnt out a little bit. And more importantly, I feel like what it comes down to is just the environment of living out here alone. If I had this job in a different place, like if I could have this job in LA with David or in St. George with my family, that would be different. But I'm here alone, and I just can't be here alone. And I think that that's just kind of slowly deteriorated my life. So it's been really hard. Long story short, I've been really pushing off this change for a long time because I've been so scared. So scared of the unknown, so scared of if it could go wrong, so scared of what if I give up this job that I've worked so hard for, and what if I end up broke and I have no money, and it's so sad to leave something that I've given so much of my life to. Like, it's just scary. And long story short, I was in between where to go because I knew I can't be here anymore. So my option was to move back to St. George where I have my sister and her husband, or to move to LA and be closer to David, my long distance boyfriend who I love. And I've spent a lot of time in prayer and, just saying, God, whatever it is you have for me, help me know it. And long story short, the last week of my life has been absolutely insane. Like, literally a blessing from God. Within the last week, God has opened 2 huge doors for me. And I'm so blessed. But it is still so scary to leave everything behind that I've known for years. This job and even this place has been my means of security. And walking away from that, I don't have a college degree. really know what I'm doing with my life. And I'm so convinced that, bad things will happen to me and I'll end up like homeless or with no money, or I don't know. Like, I always just think the worst. And so, long story short, God has opened 2 huge doors in my life this week. And it's crazy to even talk about because I just feel like I don't deserve it. And it feels too good to be true. And when these opportunities first came, I was convinced they just weren't going to work out because I never believe anything's going to work out for me. And I'm also just very grateful for you guys because you guys are all a part of this. So I'll start with the first thing. I had my all-time favorite brand in the entire world. If any of you guys know me, you know I love this brand and you know I love their products. I'm actually holding it right now, guys. Olipop. My literal dream company, favorite company. I drink Olipop like literally every day and have been for months. Me and David are actually obsessed with Olipop. Like we drink so much Olipop. Olipop reached out to me and asked me if they could sponsor my podcast. And when I tell you guys, I sat in my bed and I cried for hours. So I'm officially working with Olipop for the next couple months. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of them, guys. And I don't even know where to start with that. I've been praying that this podcast could turn into a job for me because I love it so much and because it is so time consuming and I want to give so much to it, but it's so hard to balance while also having to work a full-time job. And really, like, you guys don't know this, but each episode takes me really like anywhere from 15 to 20 hours. Like, okay, 10 to 20, depending on the episode, but preparing the episode, filming it, setting it up, and then editing takes me so long. And so it's really hard and it takes a long time. And I love it, but I want to be able to also have good health and like take care of myself and have time to go to the gym and eat good. And I just feel like I haven't really been able to do that because I've been so overwhelmed by working 40 hours a week and traveling to see David and trying to do the podcast. And so God has blessed me so much to give me, a little bit of means to where it's not my full-time job yet, this podcast, but it's kind of now my part-time job. So thank you, Olipop, for partially paying my bills for the next little bit. I love you. You're the best. So that's the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened is actually 2 of me and David's really good friends just got married. They're amazing. They just got married and they actually were the couple that was in David's music video, Burn, his most recent music video he just put out. And, she's been trying to convince me to move to LA forever because she feels like it'll be the best for me and David and it'll be good for me. And she was like, Nicole, I am moving out of my studio apartment and like maybe you could take over the lease. So long story short, I won't get into all the details, but a couple days ago, like 2 days ago, I got approved for the apartment and it's actually really affordable and it's a cute little studio and I can set up my Elephants in the Room podcast in there. So guys, I'm moving to LA and I'm also going to start being able to make Elephants in the Room more of my job. Not my full-time job yet. Like I need to make more money, but like it's going to help me get there and it's an opportunity. So I put in my notice to my bosses today that I'm quitting. And let me just tell you guys, I sobbed. And it was really hard because I care a lot about the company and I care a lot about them. And they've been so gracious to me and so good to me. And it's so scary to leave my security. It's so scary to go into the unknown. It's so scary to not know if it's going to work out. And let me tell you guys, I was convinced when Olipop reached out to me, I was like, they're going to cancel. They're going to cancel the contract. It's not going to go through. Like I convinced myself it wasn't going to work out because I don't ever believe good things are going to happen to me, but good things are happening to me. And I'm so grateful. So thank you, Jesus. And thank you to whoever's watching this, because you guys have shown so much support to the podcast. And you've helped me get downloads and streams, and you have engaged with all my content. And guys, it is changing my life. So I'm so grateful for you guys. Holy crap. I love you guys. Sorry. So thank you. Thank you guys. So change is scary. I'm scared. I'm anxious as I've ever been, but I also have a lot of peace. And I know that it's a God thing. All these little things that have happened, I won't get into the details, but they've all been so much like out of the ordinary. Like literally there's no other way these two things would have happened without God. And through this, in telling my bosses that I'm quitting and putting in my notice to my landlord and all these things that I've had to do, God has literally had it all work out perfectly. Like nothing has gone bad. And he is literally like, it is falling into place, and I owe it all to God. I give it all to God. And this means I'm going to be closer to David, guys. I'm so freaking happy. So yeah, guys, that's my update for you. So it's scary. Change is so scary. I'm so scared, but I'm so blessed. And I'm so grateful for you guys. And I'm so grateful to God and to Olipop. Love you, Olipop. Everyone go by Olipop. So yeah, guys, cheers. Cheers to change and cheers to life. If you guys are struggling and you're going through a change and you're scared, you're not alone. It is scary, but sometimes we just have to take the leap of faith and just trust that it's going to work out. And even if it doesn't, we have God, and he will help every step of the way. I love you guys so much. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you want to support me, you can follow me on my social media, Nicole.Donna on Instagram and TikTok. You can follow me on my Elephants in the Room TikTok and Instagram. And it's just Elephants in the Room on TikTok and Instagram. Also, guys, exciting announcement. I now have a YouTube channel for Elephants in the Room, and I posted last week's episode on there. So subscribe to my YouTube channel, Elephants in the Room. And you can also leave this podcast a rating. I love you guys, and I am so freaking excited for the future. Thank you for being here. We'll close out this episode by saying, what elephants are in your room? My name's Nicole, and I'll talk to you guys next week.